Think about it. You've had a Roth IRA for at least 5 years. You're over age 59 and a half. You are retired. Does that make the Roth IRA a good option to be used as an emergency fund when the unthinkable happens or incidents come up in retirement? I've got a great question from fan of the show and my perspective. That and more coming up. There are 3 5-year rules when it comes to the Roth IRA. You know the first one, it's the original 5-year rule in that your Roth IRA, in order for the earnings, the growth to come out tax-free, you've got to be age 59 and a half and you need to have had a Roth IRA open for at least 5 years. Doesn't need to be 5 consecutive years, doesn't need to be the same Roth IRA. It could be at different companies, whatever, but you need to be 59 and a half and have had a Roth IRA open for at least 5 years. That's the original 5-year rule. The second is that every Roth conversion has its own 5-year rule. That's right. Every Roth conversion, you've got to wait 5 years before you can pull the amount you converted out tax-free, as well as the growth on those dollars on that Roth conversion. So every Roth conversion has a 5-year rule. Done a lot of content on this because this one is very confusing. I've talked about the spirit, the intention behind this law, and it gets down to this sort of unique point of once you turn age 59 and a half, as we're about to see with our fan of the show question here, does the Roth conversion, does that still have its own 5-year rule as well? Sort of, okay, sort of. The 5-year rule for a Roth conversion after you turn age 59 and a half, the amount that you converted no longer needs to stay there for at least 5 years, but the growth on that conversion does. So the 5-year rule on Roth conversions after you turn age 59 and a half still sort of applies. It just applies on the growth, okay? Not on the converted amount. That's the second. And then the third 5-year rule for Roth IRAs is on inherited Roth IRAs. And this one, it's not up to you. There's no 5-year rule for you inheriting it. It's just that the original owner, the individual that passed away, they needed to have that Roth IRA or a Roth IRA open for at least 5 years. They needed to meet that first, the original 5-year rule, in order for you to withdraw the growth out tax-free as the beneficiary. So with that backdrop, okay, pretend that you've met the 5-year rules. Just wanted to give you that backdrop because it applies to this question. Is the Roth IRA a good emergency fund in retirement? I've done a lot of video, created a lot of content on whether you should have an emergency fund in retirement once you turn age 59 and a half and your retirement dollars are available to you. Do you still need an emergency fund? I've argued yes, you should, so that every time something comes up that's just a little bit out of the ordinary, you don't have to face tax consequences and you don't have to raid your retirement cookie jar. So ideally you enter retirement with a little bit of cushion, with a little bit of emergency fund. But got a great question from a fan of the show saying, yeah, but could my Roth IRA be used as a bigger emergency fund? Let's dig into it. So question here is from Robert. It said, my wife is age 67, I'm age 69, have nearly all of our retirement savings in Roth and conventional IRAs with a very small amount, about 10% of our total, in a taxable account, just enough for short-term emergencies. We're doing Roth conversions for tax management purposes for our RMDs. Those are upcoming if you're not familiar. So age 73 is when those start. But see, no need to move money from the conventional or traditional IRA to a taxable account. Since we opened our Roth more than 10 years ago, I believe we have immediate access to our Roth funds, tax and penalty free, should we need to weather a long storm. Is my thinking right, or should we have enough in a taxable account to weather a long storm, and if so, why? Fantastic question, Robert. Thank you for listening. Thanks for the question. And so the short answer is yes. I think that works, and I absolutely like what you've done. I like a lot of what you've done in that you're doing Roth conversions before age 73. That you do have a small emergency fund, about 10% of your overall portfolio. You didn't share any of those numbers, but hopefully that 10% is enough to manage a reasonable type of emergency that would come up. You know that the most common kind of purpose for an emergency fund during your career is an interruption to your income. Well, in retirement, you you've got that covered. You're on Social Security, maybe some pensions, you've got a defined withdrawal strategy. So really, that emergency fund can shrink a little bit during retirement so that it's just there to manage sort of the unforeseen or unexpected expenses that would pop up. So, does it work to leave that taxable account as it is and treat that as your emergency fund and then not need to put any additional dollars into that taxable account and instead continue with your Roth conversions and view your Roth as, yeah, if something terrible happens, listen, we could always touch that and it would be tax-free. Yes, in general, I think that plan works. The reason why I started this video explaining the 3 different 5-year rules is that's the nuance, okay? There's a couple things that I'd want to point out, and there's one thing that I just really, we'll get to it, but I would want to point out that, well, the growth on your Roth conversions, even though you're age 59 and a half, the growth on your Roth conversions should still sit there for 5 years. Normally, in normal market conditions, there's a little bit of growth, but are you really going to touch it? Well, listen, the way the market's been moving the past couple of years, there might be some growth on these Roth conversions that you want to be mindful of. So if there was an enormous emergency and need to get access to the dollars, be aware of the growth. But other than that, you've met the 5-year rule. I'm assuming there's a decent amount of Roth conversion basis in there that you could access as well. So in general, I think your thought process is right, and I wouldn't interrupt the Roth conversions that you're doing so that you can add more money to the taxable account. What I would suggest is there a way to get another option available to you if there is a bigger emergency or long-term emergency, as you phrased it? Is there potentially another option so that you don't immediately have to turn to the Roth? And I bring this up because in a handful of circumstances during my career, people have done just this, where there's been an emergency or even just an unexpected larger expense. One example, and I'm doing a video about this again here soon, is moving, right? And so I need more funds to move. And so they think, well, let me just grab the Roth because it's tax-free. I won't have big consequences. And they end up pulling a lot of money out of their Roth early in retirement. And I'm not saying that's a terrible idea. It may make sense. However, I think back to the legendary investor Charlie Munger, and one of his most famous quotes is the rule number 1 of compounding is never interrupt it unnecessarily. And so having to raid the Roth at a time when, it may be absolutely needed because there's a big emergency and you don't have any other options, but that would potentially interrupt that compound growth in the account, the account that you would say, that's the last one you want to interrupt the compound growth because the tax benefits, both for you as well as the next generation, are on that compound growth. So what I would love, and there may not be another option. I don't know all parts of your financial plan, Robert, but I would love if there was another option that you could consider. I'm not saying never touch the Roth in an emergency. I would just love it if that was one of the options along with 2 or 3 others. Maybe a home equity line of credit. And I know you'd say, at that stage of your life, do you want to get a loan? Well, depends what the type of emergency is. And so I wonder if there are just a few other options. A third to consider is, you're still a couple years away from required minimum distributions. And by the time you get there to 73, it's very possible that your RMDs are much, much smaller and it fits within your withdrawal strategy. Maybe that's covering the taxes on the Roth conversions that you're still doing above and beyond that. I've done some content on that. But if those RMDs, when they start in a few years, are still more than what's really needed, maybe those dollars get funneled into that taxable account and sort of build that up and create a little moat around the Roth IRA. So in short, to your question, love the strategy. It works, absolutely. Be aware of the 5-year rule for Roth conversions, but it absolutely works. In an ideal situation, you've got more options than just tapping the Roth if there happens to be a larger emergency so that you don't need to interrupt that compound growth. Work with your certified financial planner on that, looking at all 6 areas of your financial life, your tax picture, your present financial position, your retirement plan, your investment strategies, your estate plan, and your estate goals. All of those will help you identify, well, what other options are there and which would make the most sense should something come up. Work with your CFP on that. If you don't have a CFP on your team, you can contact one on my team. Find us online, Korhorn.com. That's Korhorn with K, wisemoneyshow.com. You can find us there as well, or give us a call, 574-247-5898. All right, there you have it. Go out and take your next wise step in your financial life.